We've got Josh Dorfman today on the line and in the house. And Josh, as I said, he's gone out with a brand called the Lazy Environmentalist and the LazyEnvironmentalist.com. And his latest book is the Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget. But really, Josh is anything but lazy. He's really the busy environmentalist. Josh, thank you for taking the time and coming on our show, Green is Good, today. You're a very busy man, but you're doing great stuff, and we were just real excited that you accepted our invitation to come on today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and
what you guys are doing, too.
Hey, Josh, listen, we've read your bio, and there's so much to talk about. You and all of the ventures you're doing. We're going to get to it all today, but tell us a little bit how you got involved in this whole green revolution. Tell us a little bit about the China Epiphany, your start.
Yeah, that was about 12 or 13 years ago. I was living in China, and it was pretty soon after college. I was there, and I ended up getting a job traveling all around the country trying to sell bicycle locks for a company called Kryptonite. You guys probably know the Kryptonite bike lock, the U-lock, and it was just a real interesting experience. I was 23, 24 years old, and there's, of course, everyone at the time in China is riding a bicycle, so there's over 1 billion bicycles, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, I've got the best bike lock in the world and the biggest bike lock market on the planet, bar none. I'm going to make a ton of money here. And for various reasons, that didn't all work out. One being that I actually didn't know a lot about marketing, and the bike lock was a little more expensive than the bikes that people rode at the time. So that was one hitch. But beyond that, what I started realizing during that experience was holy cow, there's a billion bicyclists here right now, but there's highways going in, there are tunnels being built, bridges being erected at a breakneck pace. The country's developing along an American model. Everybody wants to have cars, and what the heck is it going to mean for the planet when there's 1 billion car drivers in China? And of course, you understand why they want to do it. They're trying to raise their quality of life. They're actually trying to emulate the United States because we all drive cars.
Right.
And you start to think, how are we going to enable countries like China or India or Eastern Europe, all these places around the world that want to raise their standards of living, that want to consume more? How do we continue to live well in the United States, but do it in such a way that we can do it for a very long time because we're going to bring our lifestyles into balance with nature's abilities to support it?
Wow. And so that was the birth then of, where did you go from there? From that epiphany, what was your bridge over into creating your messages and your messages of change?
Well, I came back to the States in 97, and to be honest, I went through a real kind of tough time for about 5 or 6 years thinking about these issues, looking at the way that we consume in the United States. I mean, the way that companies make products, sometimes with a lot of disregard for the environmental consequences of how products are made. We consume without thinking about the environmental consequences of what we're consuming and how we consume it. And I think, like a lot of environmental activists, for a long time, I was very angry about that. And I didn't know what to do with that anger. But what I started to realize was that my anger, and, I was really not changing anybody. It was simply it just got to a point where, my friends and my family just didn't want to hang out with me because they're like, oh, here comes Josh and he's angry. He's just going to make us feel bad. And I just thought there has to be another way. There has to be a way to move people to make changes in their lives. And I just came to a recognition of the reality that this is the way it is. Companies make products. They're not breaking the law in most cases. Consumers,
right.
We consume. We're busy. We've got busy lives. We're accustomed to convenience. This is what we do, and we want to live well. So I thought, all right, here's just simply the reality. Rather than banging my head against the reality, how can I start to shift the way we live in ways that people are going to enjoy doing that will also be better for the planet? We'll start small, but we have to start somewhere, and this feels like a more effective way to create change, and that's what I've set out to do. And
was that then the birth of the Lazy Environmentalist?
Well, the first thing I started is a company I started 6 years ago called Vivavi.
Okay.
And Vivavi is now a company that sells modern design, eco-friendly furniture and home furnishings. And my first thought was, let me see if I can just make green choices very attractive. If I can find great design furniture that's made with, say, recycled materials or wood that is certified to have been sustainably harvested, then I can show people and say, hey, you can still live in a beautifully designed home and surround yourselves with beautiful furniture and furnishings, but those products, as much as you will enjoy them, they will also have less of an impact on the environment. And it's a way to say you can feel great about the choices you're going to make in your lives. And I wanted to show also that some of the best design available today could be what we call green design, or design that is mindful of the planet as the products are made. Out of that philosophy eventually came what I do now mostly, which is the Lazy Environmentalist. And I'll just tell you real quick how that came about.
Sure.
When I had Vivavi, we were running the company for about a year and a half, and I was down in Washington, D.C., and I felt that because we were so focused on design, and as much as I cared about the planet, and that's why I had started this company to create, and offer consumers alternatives to the conventional furniture choices, I knew that to be successful, we had to have the best design. So I felt that one of the places where that was happening the most was in Brooklyn, up in New York. A lot of furniture designers are there, and a lot of them are very conscious and focused on sustainability. So I moved my company up there. And the last day as I was moving up there, I had one employee in Washington, D.C., and she was my office manager. She was my assistant, because we were pretty small at the time. She was packing me up. We were moving up. We were driving up to Washington, D.C. I was selling her my car, which she was going to take back to Washington, and this would be our last day working together. So we're in the car. It's late at night, and she's now hyperventilating in the passenger seat. I don't know what's going on, but she's really nervous. So I said to her, "Are you all right?" She's like, "Look, Josh, I have to ask you something. I have to get this off my chest. I couldn't ask when you were my boss, but you're not my boss anymore. I really need to ask you something." So I thought, oh my God, she's attracted to me. This is going to be great. Not my boss anymore. This is cool. So I was like, yeah, what's up? Let's talk about it. She's like, well, I don't want you to take it the wrong way. I was like, no, let's talk about it. So she's like, all right, are you really an environmentalist? And which is not nearly what I thought she was. She wasn't attracted to me at all. And she proceeds to say, I know you're selling these eco products, but you're always in the shower. It's a pain for you to recycle. You were going to throw your bed out. I took it to the homeless shelter. You don't act like an environmentalist. You don't talk like an environmentalist. Yeah, you're selling this stuff, but what's your deal? And I just started laughing because I knew exactly what she was saying. And what she was saying was kind of how I felt. Was like, as much as I care about the planet myself, and I know global warming is happening, we have so many other environmental challenges across the board, I don't want to change my own lifestyle, really, frankly, just to do the right thing for the planet. I like taking long showers because I do my best thinking in the shower. So I thought, who's inventing the products, the low-flow shower heads or the solar thermal heating system or, solar water heating system so that I can maintain my behavior but reduce the impact of my behavior? And from that came this whole Lazy Environmentalist dialogue, which has subsequently been a radio show that I had for a while, and now books, and now this new TV show on Sundance Channel. That's awesome.
And before we go to break, we have about a minute left. Can you give us the definition of what is the Lazy Environmentalist? Then we'll come back and talk about all what you're doing now and other issues surrounding the green movement in America.
Yeah, I think all things being equal, most people would like to reduce the impact of their lifestyles. They want to be part of the environmental solution, but lazy environmentalists are people who want to do what's right for the planet, but are super busy, probably lazy, accustomed to convenience, don't really want to change who they are, but would like to reduce the impact of their lives. And these people are lazy environmentalists, and when given good choices to make that fit our lives and are better for the planet, we'll make them every time.
That's awesome. Hey, listen, everybody, we're going to be back with Josh Dorfman. And everybody, I want you to buy his book, The Lazy Environmentalist, because it's just another form of proof that green is good.
If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good. We are honored to have Josh Dorfman today on the line. Josh Dorfman is the Lazy Environmentalist, and he was just telling us about his book, The Lazy Environmentalist, and we're going to talk about his latest book, which we have in studio, both Mike and I, The Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget, and it is great. In this failing, or at least rocky economy, The Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget is chock full of great information. Why don't you tell us, Josh, A, how's it going with the new book, and also what does it mean to go green on a budget?
It's going well with this book. It's been out now for about a month and a half, and as people start to pick it up, they get excited because I think there's some skepticism. Actually, can we really go green on a budget? And this is why I wrote the book, was because as I've been out talking to audiences for the last couple of years, when I wrote my first book, which was The Lazy Environmentalist: Your Guide to Easy, Stylish Green Living, that book was great. There's a lot of great design stuff in there. I mean, cool stuff, but there's so much pushback, and people feel like, well, that's all great, but green's too expensive. So in this book, I set out to see what the alternatives would be on a budget. Is it possible to do? And so I'm writing about things, a number of different trends that are happening. One of them that I think is actually really interesting is how the internet actually in several ways enables people to reduce the impact of their lives, save money, and still get the things that they want or need. I'll just give you a couple of examples of what I cover. So
right.
I write about a company, for example, called Chegg.com, Chegg. Now, what Chegg does is they rent textbooks to college students for about 60 to 85% off the cover price. The idea is, textbooks are really expensive, and it's a huge expense and burden for students, so rent your textbooks for the semester at a fraction of the price. When you're done, the company gives you a box to just send them, and I think it might even be free of cost to just send them back to the company. So the next semester, students somewhere else around the country can use them, and by virtue of doing this, I mean, it's, we're getting the textbooks we want, we're saving money, and we're chopping down fewer trees because you don't need as many textbooks. So you're finding these examples, there's one called, it's a slightly different example, but we're seeing all these kinds of new models for ways to swap goods or trade goods. There's one for, gamers, people who are on like the Xbox or Wii or whatever it's called, GoozX, GOOZEX.com, where gamers can swap games like, John Madden football or whatever, Madden 08, whatever, for $1 per game. So you don't have to go out and consume new products to have the kinds of entertainment you want in your life. You can trade, and the internet enables these kinds of communities. And one other that I find particularly interesting, there's a company called Zinio.com, Z-I-N-I-O, Zinio.com. Now, this is a website where you can subscribe to your favorite magazines in a digital format. You can literally read them online, and they've got a great reader. You can zoom in on pictures. You can download them onto your computer. You can put them on your laptop. You can even read your favorite magazines on your iPhone. The subscriptions are usually a little more affordable because now companies don't have to print out all of that paper just to make their magazines. So you can serve paper, which means you can serve trees, which means you're doing something good for the environment. You get the content you want. And what's also cool about reading magazines through Zinio is that when you subscribe to, say, Business Week for the year,
right,
you can then go back and say, like, oh, there was some cool story about recycling. You can type into Zinio's search engine recycling, and then it will go through all of your subscriptions and pull up all of the articles that you like. So instead of trying to, dog-ear magazine titles and try and go find the articles, you can just search all of your content. It's pretty cool.
I mean, that is, I have your book here right in front of me, and I've been going through it the last nights leading up to this interview, Josh, and I got to tell you, in 221 pages, you made it so amazingly chock full of information. I have to tell our listeners, this book is worth its weight in gold because it will save you so much money, time, and it will literally save the environment if you just take Josh up on some of his suggestions. It is really, it was so inspiring, and for me, I'm going to use at least 10 of his resources, just like the 3 he just gave. So, Josh, the book is just golden. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I encourage all our listeners to go out and buy the book. But tell us, why is it so important for the American public at large who's listening to really embrace the sustainability movement, and is it here to stay?
Well, I think to your first question, why it's so important to embrace the sustainability movement, I mean, we are in a time where we are facing major environmental challenges. Almost to a degree where they're so big we can't even deal with it, and our media can't even deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you listen to the scientists, they will tell you that this is a crisis. So we have no choice but to deal with sustainability, to reduce our impact on the planet. My feeling is, though, we have an opportunity.
Right.
And that opportunity is to say, when we start to make these choices, so choices that reduce our impact, so choices that save us money, not only is it better for the planet, but it's actually better for our lifestyles based on the things that we value.
Yeah.
We value living or saving money or cutting our costs. Great. There's environmental ways to do that don't sacrifice your quality of life. If you value high-performance schools where your kids get every opportunity to succeed, that's going to be a green school because it's going to be a high-performance school because there'll be great daylighting, so you'll be using less energy. There'll be, less toxic materials in the building, so it'll be healthier for the students inside and for the planet. The high-performance strategy is very often a green strategy. So what I really believe is that, we can talk about saving the planet so, we don't die because of global warming or civilization doesn't really suffer. I mean, and that's true. But we can also talk about going green because this is the path truly to the future that I think we all want, not based on an environmental agenda, but based on each of our individual personal agendas. And that's the new story that we have to tell more, because that, when you can show people examples of that and begin to convince people of that, then they say, well, sign me up. Let's do this thing, because I can see where we're going and I can see how the future is going to be better, not just for nature, but for America, for my community, for me, for my family, and that's powerful.
How about for the business owners? In terms of the sustainability movement, are one of the key drivers, when you look at the sustainability movement and the foundations of it, people, planet, and profits, are you a true believer in sustainable business models, profitable business models, not these build and they will come type field of dreams business models if they don't make financial sense? How does that work, and what are some of the key drivers and innovative things that are going on with regards to business driving the sustainability movement?
Yeah, I think it's happening on a number of levels. I do a lot of spokesperson work. For two brands, I do work for Brita.
Tell us who that is and tell us what that's about.
So Brita, it's a household item. Probably a lot of us have them in our homes, like a Brita water pitcher,
right,
or a Brita water filter. And the reason I do work for them is because this is a great way to reduce the amount of plastic bottled waters we're getting and disposing of. And unfortunately, only about 23% or so get recycled in the U.S. The rate's still low, so a lot of those end up in landfills. Brita has a great campaign called filterforgood.com, which I would encourage your listeners to go check out, where they can take a pledge to reduce their own bottled water waste, get a great reusable water bottle for about $10, and there's some real cool information there.
Great.
I also do work for GreenWorks Natural Cleaners, which is a great line of natural cleaning products. They're biodegradable, made from plant-based ingredients. And the reason why I do GreenWorks is because they're one of the most affordable green cleaning lines, and they're one of the most available green cleaning lines. You'll find them in supermarkets, local grocery stores. And the reason why is because it's owned by Clorox. So you have a Fortune 500 company that has done something really substantively green to say we're going to make this natural cleaning line. And the reason why we're going to do this is not simply because it's the right thing for the planet, but because there's a consumer market for it.
And, that's a great point. But tell us also about this now. GreenWorks, Fortune 500. So the quality, you're saying, is not compromised. They know what they're doing.
Well, it might even actually be better because they have a bigger R&D budget than most companies.
Perfect. So the quality of GreenWorks is there. They won't, if it's going to clean as great as any other product that's degrading the environment, you're saying, though.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So you're seeing companies starting to respond to a consumer market that actually exists, but it really only exists to me when you hit the right price point with a high-quality product.
And you're saying these price points are in line with just the regular consumer products in their category.
Yeah, and
awesome.
I happen to not believe, and I say this from someone who runs a green company,
right,
as much as someone who interviews a lot of people who run green companies like you guys do. I just don't believe that there's market research that says consumers will pay a premium for green products. I've never seen that in reality.
Well, you know, it's really amazing because exactly, Josh, what John and I have found out so many times in our own personal experience is going to organic products, going to greener products, competitively priced. I mean, the price point has gotten so close to your standard brand price points. And when you're talking about a company, a Fortune 500 company like Clorox, okay, there is a big name that generations have trusted for a long time, and it speaks to what John always says about what sustainability is, the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit. Again, when the people say, this is a product I want, and companies, big companies can make a profit selling that kind of green product. I mean, there we go. We're in good shape on our way towards sustainability.
Well, you're absolutely right, and this is what's going to happen. This absolutely has to happen, because if we are truly going to transform our economy, which is what we have to do to get towards sustainability, major companies have to be part of that change.
That's right.
And we're going to see more of this, and they're going to see it because, as you're saying too, consumers are demanding it. But I want to tell you about one other.
Tell us
something else I see that I think is really interesting.
Please share that with our listeners.
There's a company out not far from you guys,
Yep.
I believe based somewhere around San Francisco, called Solar City.
Okay.
And this is a real interesting company that has come up with a way to say, so they offer homeowners the ability to get solar panels on their home. But what they've done differently than other companies is that they said, all right, look, we know that solar panels are expensive. We know that most people are not going to spend, even with all of the incentives and rebates and whatever, $20,000 or $30,000 to get solar on their home. We hear you. Instead of telling you to do it, even though you say you're not going to do it, and that's our marketing strategy, here's what we're going to do. We're going to lease you the solar panels for zero money down. And the lease payments, starting in month one, will be lower than the amount that you're going to save on your energy bills by virtue of putting solar on your roof. So you don't have to pay any money up front, and you're going to save money in month one, and you're going to do it because you're going to sign a 15-year lease with us, and you're going to lock in one price. So as energy prices rise, which historically they do almost every year,
right,
you will have locked in a low lease rate, so your savings will continue over time. And they've come up with it's just like leasing a car. They've changed the business model. They haven't changed the technology. It's not like it's different solar panels, but they've come up with a smarter business model to make solar way more attractive and affordable for people to get it.
That is really, so they're democratizing the solarization of America.
By changing the model.
Changing the model.
I think is so important, because this is when people say, well, one day when we get solar and one day, no, forget that. We just have to think smarter about what we have and how we make it available to people, because there is a way for Solar City to make money.
I love it.
There's a way for consumers to benefit from it too, and we get this solution that's great for the environment into the marketplace and onto people's homes.
Josh, what is their website for our listeners? That's just rocks. That's a great concept.
SolarCity.com.
Perfect. Hey, Josh, we have a couple minutes left, and I want to talk about the evolution of the Lazy Environmentalist. You are now coming to television. Tell us about what's going on. Right. Tell us about this. June 16th. This is so exciting because you're an amazing environmental evangelist, and we're just thankful for the time you're spending with us today. Tell us about what your new show is going to be about and how often it's going to be on, because we want our listeners to tune in.
Great. Well, the show is also called The Lazy Environmentalist, and it's been really interesting to take it in this direction. But what we do is it's a weekly show, so it airs Tuesdays at 9 p.m. starting June 16th.
Right.
Basically what we do is we go to people in all walks of life, what we sort of call environmental skeptics, or just generally lazy people who don't have the environmental part. And they might be business owners who run a pet daycare center, or a hairstylist, or a fashion designer, or just a family that generates a lot of trash, or a principal of a school, a mayor of a town. We go to all kinds of situations, work with all kinds of people, and we say, okay, are you going green?
Wow.
No.
Gotcha.
Why not? Well, it's too expensive. I don't have time. It doesn't look good. It doesn't work. Whatever. We say, okay, if I can find environmental alternatives that satisfy your criteria, that work well, that save you time, would you be willing to go green? And then they say, well, yeah. They say, okay, well, now it's on me. Then I set out to try and find those alternatives, and they have to be lazy.
This show is going to rock, and you know what? This is Josh, do me a favor. Can you promise once the show's up and running that you'll come back on our show?
I would love to, guys.
Hey, listen, everybody, all our listeners, we want you to go to the website, the LazyEnvironmentalist.com, read about Josh, read his blog, also buy his book, The Lazy Environmentalist on a Budget, but more importantly, tune in to the Sundance Channel on June 16th to see the premiere at 9 p.m. of The Lazy Environmentalist, because The Lazy Environmentalist is again proof that green is good.